Hello everyone! In this short video I would like to present the stage of construction, cleaning out and renovation of a backyard pond. 15 years ago I bought a plot of land in the countryside with a pond. A piece of the pond was on the adjacent plot, so the pond was connected with the neighbors by a wide canal. The canal ran across the border between the plots. A small filled pond. I deepened the pond and backfilled part of it so that it was completely on my plot. I buried the canal between the ponds. In the summer, it turned out that my pond is only 15 cm deep, so I decided to make another deepening. The excavator dug 100 tons of clay. I buried a 300 mm diameter pipe between the ponds. I strengthened the edges of the pond with pine pegs, which were left after building a house at my neighbor's. The clay dug out of the pond was removed and the ground was leveled. I planted willows on the edge of the pond. My pond still didn't look interesting. I planted grass on the shore. Next winter, I decided to sink a tree in the pond to shelter the fish. I put them on ice. In the spring, the birch sank by itself. I further strengthened the edges of the pond with pegs and stones. The tube connecting the ponds was plugged with a stopper. A grass grew around the pond and I started building a house next to it. I put more fish into the pond. Next winter, in the spring, water overflowed out of the pond. The edges of the pond have turned green. A path was created around the pond, which I poured out with filled stones. Next winter, I built a solid wooden pier. And in the summer, water lilies planted a year earlier grew. More fish appeared in the pond. In the following years, the trees on the bank of the pond grew larger. After 10 years of use, the pond was significantly shallower, which led to a lack of oxygen under the ice in spring. I decided to do something about it. In the beginning, I took out the water lilies from the pond, which I placed in pots and drowned them in the neighbor's pond. I pumped the water out of the pond. I collected the remaining fish and placed them in the net in the neighbor's pond. I found tons of silt at the bottom of my pond. I removed the pine pegs from the edges. The excavator removed 12 tons of silt from the bottom of the pond. The edges of the pond were secured with willow fascine bands. In this way, terraces were created, which were covered with a mat and poured with gravel. The edges of the pond above the fascine were covered with soil. Within a month, the pond was refilled with water. In the winter period, the works were suspended. In the spring, I pumped out the water again, and the heavy machines went to work. Piles securing the fascine fences were driven in the rows. Other terraces were built, which were also covered with a mat, and field stones were placed on them. About 80 tons of field stones were used for the entire project. The stones were covered with gravel. At the bottom, I installed plastic pipes with a diameter of 300 mm, which will be a shelter for fish in the future. The lowest part of the bottom was covered with a foil for ponds and covered with stones. I took out from my neighbor's pond pots with water lily seedlings, which I had sunk there a year earlier. I placed the pots at the bottom of my pond. I fastened logs around the pots. I hammered steel bars into the bottom and fastened the logs to them. They will be a shelter for fish. Plants with flattening leaves were planted in casts to limit their growth. Finally, the day has come to fill the pond with water. In the bottom of the edge of the pond, I hid electrical wiring, filters and lamp power. I let all the cables through the buried sanitary pipe with a diameter of 110 mm. Fortunately, my construction withstood the pressure of the water. A pipe that was dug in 10 years ago was now very useful. The pipe from the pump mounted at the bottom of the pump to the water filter. When filled with water, the pond was 2.2 meters deep. All the fish happily returned to the pond. I covered the path around the pond with small stones. I also installed a high-power aerator. A new pier appeared on the shore. Water lilies bloom beautifully in the summer. Free peeling, an additional benefit. The final result. In the autumn, the water level rose to almost 3 meters. This winter, the fish did not run out of oxygen. I enjoy feeding fish. I have koi carps, roots, grass carps in the pond. I wish you a lot of joy and satisfaction from working on your own pond. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.